Every year since 2014, the Association of National Advertisers asks its 1,600 members with over $400 billion in marketing spend to vote on a single marketing word of the year. For 2025, for the first time in the awards history, they couldn't land on one word. They had to name two. The winner was agentic AI. The runner-up by a hair was authenticity. Think about that for a second. The people who spend more on marketing than almost anyone on earth looked at this past year and split it right down the middle. Half of them said the machines win, and the other half said that staying real should be the story, and the machines ended up winning by a nose. That gap, that one vote gap between the tool and the trust, is what this whole episode is about. Because the question underneath it isn't which word wins. It's how you live with both at once, how you use one without sacrificing the other. My name is June, and this is Antiviral, a human approach to marketing. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Antiviral. It's been a little bit since I last put out a new episode, and it's just been really busy, to be honest with you. But I've been trying to figure out throughout this entire time what would be the right next episode to put out. And we've talked about strategy. We've talked about all these little conditions, right, on how to understand marketing more. And I think we're getting to the point where it's probably a good idea to start talking about the elephant in the room, the main elephant in the room. And that is AI. Ever since ChatGPT came into the picture in 2022, it's essentially completely changed the landscape, the marketing landscape, and pretty much any business everywhere. And this is something that a lot of people are either very for or very against, right? You're either very interested in AI and I'm trying to use it for anything and everything. And then there is the other camp, which absolutely despises AI and does not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But the reality of it is that AI exists and it's here and it's not going away. Same as with any other technology in the old days, right? When TV came around, radio freaked out. When the internet came around, everybody freaked out. And so on and so forth. It's a very common thing because technology that is transformational, that fundamentally changes how we operate in a world is very, very scary. But eventually we end up figuring out how to use it. And this episode, I want it to be around how I best understand how to use it from the perspective of keeping that humanity, of keeping that human approach to your marketing, because everybody is using AI for a lot of things, right? And that includes marketing. A lot of people are using it for strategies. A lot of people are using it for blogs, for posts, for anything and everything that they can think of, images, videos for their company. So what is the thing that properly allows you to sit right in the middle, that does not take away from what makes your business successful, right? Which is who you are and your humanity and stuff like that. And how do we utilize AI in a way that actually benefits our company and benefits our business in the best way possible within the marketing realm? And yeah, that's what this episode is going to be about. So let's jump into the first kind of statistic that I have. And this one is interesting. 97% of marketing leaders are already using AI, like daily. And nearly all of them are, according to surveys, right? They're thinking of spending even more time with AI and use AI more within the next few years. So the tool isn't really an edge anymore. Like, so many people are using it now. And everyone has the exact same one. Like, you're either using ChatGPT or you're using Claude or you're using, I guess those are the main two. There are other ones. Obviously, there's Meta, there is Copilot, there is all that sort of thing. But everybody ends up it's using the main target ones, the ones that are performing the best, right? Everybody's using the same one. So how do you separate yourself when the answers that you are given with AI and the things that AI tells you to do are the same exact things that it's going to tell other people that you should do because it's using the exact same training data, it's using the exact same internet to kind of give you these answers. So again, how do you separate yourself? And what will soon matter, right, is what you point it at. Same as any other tool. It's I go back to social media and it's a very common thing, but social media, you can be social on social media as an example and be perfectly fine. Or you could sell on social media and do just that. And it could work perfectly fine or it could not. Like it doesn't matter. The tool at a certain point really doesn't matter, right? And it's about what you intend to use that tool for and whether that ends up working. And another point that I saw very recently is actually an article from the CEO of Cloudflare. And that is, for the people that don't know, the Cloudflare is essentially a company that sits in front of roughly, 1 in 5 websites on Earth, according to my research. And it's allows to essentially create some sort of safety barrier for your websites, right? But it says that bots have quietly passed humans for the first time in the internet's history. So 57% of page traffic, right, is machines now, more than humans. That is a crazy statistic to think that the internet now has more machine algorithm bot traffic than human traffic for the first time in the internet's history. So there's this concept of, that I've heard a lot about, the dead internet theory, right? Which is a theory that the internet is or will be devoid of human interaction in the future. But it's almost starting to come true. Like the fact that now we have more bots flying around the internet than we have people is crazy. And you can very clearly see what's happening and why it's happening, right? Anywhere you see, there's images, there's texts, there's videos, there are ads. All of them seem to be, or a lot more and more of them, are made by AI for AI algorithms. So these things that used to be for people are no longer for people. They're for algorithms. So people start losing trust in it because they don't feel connected to it anymore. Right now, what most people are doing with AI is trying to figure out a way to game the system of other machines, of other algorithms to try and get at the top, to try and get the most amount of views. That is essentially what everybody is doing. And before, pre AI, you couldn't trust what people said. But now it's hard to even trust what you see with your own eyes on the internet. And that's what's crazy, right? Um, I was reading this recently, which is Canva's 2026 State of Marketing and AI report. And in it, Canva surveyed 1,415 marketing leaders and 3,547 consumers across 7 countries. And it found that 7 in 10 consumers feel that AI ads are missing something. They can't quite point as to what it's missing, but it doesn't feel like it's meant for them. It doesn't feel like that it compels them to do something. And that's a really interesting idea, and it tracks with everything that I'm seeing across. And it's something that I call, and I guess other people are starting to call it, but the trust penalty, right? People are starting to lose trust on the things that were meant to be the vehicles around it for either the website or, ads or, things that you would put out there was for people to know things that made them or compelled them to move and try to buy something or try to move something that was in their favor. Well, now people don't have that trust anymore. They're losing that in spades. And there's actually a study by Colleen Kirk, and I hope I said that name correctly. Colleen Kirk. But anyways, it's called the AI authorship effect. And this study talked about how when consumers believe that marketing communication is written by AI rather than a human, positive word of mouth and customer loyalty drops, right? And this is an actual study that has been peer reviewed. But essentially, it talked about how the idea, right, that positive word of mouth and that customer loyalty drops whenever you think that AI is part of the picture. And that's just a common thing of how we operate nowadays. It's that effect, it's actually weaker when it's about factual message versus emotional ones, which means that if you're trying to use AI to tell a story, people hate that a lot more than if you're using AI to try and come up with the right answer, if you will. People trust that AI can give you an answer, if you will, better than it should or can tell a story. That effect, right, that they were looking for actually proved to be weaker when the AI edits. When you know that the AI edits rather than writes, right? They don't care as much if it's just edits. And it's also weaker when a message is signed openly by an AI, meaning you are being upfront by the fact that you are using AI to create these kinds of things, right? Then there is a weaker signal that I am going to trust you less, right? I still may not trust you, but it's not as strong a signal. And with this paper and what other researchers are kind of figuring out and are trying to figure out around this realm is they're calling it an authenticity premium. That is what it means to be in this world right now, is that authenticity, it's at a premium. And a lot of people are trying to figure out how to create authenticity. And a lot of people are trying to fake it. A lot of businesses are trying to fake it, again, for the same reason, to game the algorithm. And they're trying to use whatever methods possible to create this sense of authenticity. But trust is now a scarce resource, right? And where I think the business world is headed, and I've talked about it in another episode, but that's why I'm saying that right now the attention economy is now gone, right? Now what we're stepping into is a meaning economy, an economy where I have to figure out if there is meaning for me to be willing to pay attention, for me to be willing to put out my wallet to do something, right? I need to believe in it because I don't trust what is out there. That's where I believe we are coming down to again and again. And all this research that I've been doing and all of these reports and everything that I have kind of been seeing lately just are little clues that are pointing to the exact same thing. Right? We are falling into this idea where trust is becoming such an important resource, and we need to figure out how to make people trust us more. And this is where the important part of what are we willing or what should we be handing over to AI that doesn't take away from trust, because it is so scarce right now, right? And you can probably figure out, if you've been following me up to this point with all the podcast episodes that I have been releasing so far, but you can probably figure out that the main thing that I'm looking to hand over, right, are not the human things. What do I mean by that? Well, I like to talk about it from the things that take my time, but not my judgment. And that means that anything that buys me time, I'm all for, right? But as soon as I have to make the decision, or anything that I consider to be public facing, right, I don't like using AI for, because it erodes that trust in a small or big way. And I'd rather just bypass that entire thing and not use it at all for anything that is public facing. So the primary thing here to understand is that I consider creativity to be the single most human thing that we have. Creativity tops everything. It's for storytelling, it's for figuring out what is the right solution to a problem, all sorts of things. Creativity is at the top, it's what we do best. And that is the thing that I want to keep and maintain for my marketing, for my business, for everything, and to remain me, right? Because people are looking for more human, for more connection, for more reality. And when I say things that take my time, but not my judgment, let me give you a few examples of what that could potentially mean. Things that take your time. The easy ones to start are learning, as an example, right? I don't know how SEO works. Well, then you can just ask ChatGPT, you can ask Claude, and ask it how, or to give you a lesson plan or to give you a course plan on learning more about SEO in a way that you could potentially understand it, right? You can ask it to help you understand a system that you've never touched. Let's say you're trying to a new tool, right? And it's like, okay, so how do I make this work? Or you can use it to actually reverse engineer things like, okay, so Coca-Cola is massively successful. Let me tell ChatGPT to reverse engineer how their marketing is, as an example, or whatever, right? But it's the concept of learning something, of figuring something out, right? So that you can take that and do something with that information, right? You're seeking it for a reason. The next one that I think is fairly important that a lot of people should do more is reporting. Pulling numbers together and asking it what happened last month, asking the AI what happened last month, not what should I be doing, which is again a very common thread, but what happened last month, and just being very easy to see, okay, so based on the reports, based on what the numbers are saying, this is telling me something. And that interpretation is the human part. That interpretation is what would let you come up with an idea, be creative, and come up with a solution on, okay, we didn't do as well this month. Well, then let's figure something out to do next month that is going to get better. Because if you ask the AI to report and then to tell you what it should be doing, it's going to give you things that it was trained on, which is the exact same things that everybody else will tell you. And every average marketer will tell you, which is you should probably spend more money on marketing, or you should spend more time doing more things in marketing. That's really all the things that happen, whether it's through social media, advertising, billboards, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. It's always going to boil down to you should just do more. And I prefer to use AI essentially to make it easier instead of me having to go to all these different places to figure out the different reports, to pull the reports from social media, to pull the reports from advertising, or for my website from Google Analytics. I'd rather centralize everything and have it pull the report through the AI, right? The AI pulls everything and I get the numbers and then I figure out what to do. Next example is grunt work. So just little things that you know are there, but you never actually do anything because it just takes work and time that you don't have. And I see this as very common because I have it on my website too. But things like finding broken links on my website, right? At some point, you change the name, the URL of your website, or you change certain things, and links get broken, right? Google doesn't like that, and you will forget what is broken or what used to be there that is no longer there or shouldn't be there. And you can ask the AI to run through and scrape your website and find out where this URL is or what are the broken links that lead to nowhere. And that saves you a lot of time from an SEO perspective. Instead of you having to figure out and go one by one and look to see, or use these expensive tools to try and figure something out. If you have an AI account, it's probably easier to just let the AI do that. And that's what I mean by grunt work, just little things like researching. Go through your Google Search Console and research the top keywords that you're ranking for, right? So you, again, take that information and can figure out what should I do with this information, right? What is worth doing? and maybe tell you, there's pointing you a direction, right? Another one that I think could be fairly useful is cheerleading, is what I put here in my notes. But the idea of having the AI actually act as a cheerleader for you, right? As an accountability buddy or whatever it is you want to call it, where it's like, okay, I need to become better at posting, right? And posting good content every every week, as an example, right? To go there and to be like, okay, I have this idea or I have this thing that I want to do, right? And for it to be encouraging you to actually go and do it, right? Or to send you a reminder, or through Slack that you haven't, done a post yet, that sort of thing, to kind of give you that idea to push you forward into creating things that you want to do. Things that I've actually used it for as well is creating MVPs, which is minimum viable products. I do this actually quite often. And I'll probably talk about it a little more, but it's the idea of building something, again, minimally, as quickly as possible, just to see whether it works or not. And the last one is for prep work in general. Like, you want to figure out, or you want to organize your ideas. I do this all the time because I journal a lot, right? So I write a lot of things down, but it's usually very, like, garbled. Like, it's usually just in every which way. I usually have to I'm thinking about it for several days. So it's in multiple journals or it's in multiple places. I sometimes write on my physical notebooks, right? I have different notebooks. One is an idea notebook, one is a work notebook. And, things that I put down as I'm thinking about it, I just write it down so I don't forget. And then I forget where I wrote it down. So I like to have these notes or these things kind of then put that on the AI, that I can just be like, parse through this information, right? And tell me what is it that I was thinking about these things, right? Or organize it in an outline so that I can figure out what is it that I've been trying to say, or what is it that I've been trying to do for this past couple days, right? And for me, that becomes very useful because when I'm doing presentations or when I am thinking of creating something or writing a blog, as an example, right? I have a starting point. I have a place where I've thought about it. I've written down about how I'm thinking about it. And then the summarizing or the outlining actually reminds me, okay, this is what I wanted to do, right? And it makes it a lot easier because then I don't have to spend time searching for where all of these things are. So those are the things that I would recommend, right? You, as a starting point for you to think about, to potentially hand over to AI. But there's, I'm sure, a million things, because this list is based on essentially how I work, right? And the way that I work in my industry may be different and how you work, but it's essentially the exact same thing. What are the things that I spend a lot of time on that could save me time, but that do not take my judgment? I'm the decision maker. I'm the one that moves ahead with things. So it's about automating the parts of your business that doesn't face people. So you can spend more time, right? Because you are saving time. So you can spend more time making better things that are people facing, right? Or that helps people trust you more. That's how I would rather use AI, to save me time so that I can spend more on the things that I actually care about, on the things that actually matter to me, which is getting people to trust me more. And all the ideas and the writing, the images, the videos, all the judgment calls, all of it, if you actually stop to think about it, and I'm sure I've talked about it before, but all of it is an interpretation of who you are, right? I'm sure I've talked about it, but the idea of whenever you write something or whenever you show up, whenever you put something out in the world, the people that are seeing it, right? They're the ones that are trying to identify whether you are the right person for them or not. And everything that you put out there is a vote, essentially, into who I am. I am putting this out because I think this is cool, or I think this is good, or I think this is valuable, right? And The people on the other side of the screen, are the ones that are interpreting this information. Everything that you put out in the world should say something about you, and it naturally does. But when you run it through AI, it says nothing about you, because the AI is the one that is doing the writing, is doing the images, is putting, what's out there. So it's going to sound professional. It's going to sound, like it makes sense, but it's going to ring hollow. And this is something that a lot of people are talking about in the previous survey, right? But when they were talking about how the ad made by AI is missing something. And I think the something is it's missing humanity. It's missing the depth that humans have, that this is there for a purpose. And somebody created it because they cared. A lot of the best songs in the world, as an example, came about because they went through a harsh period of time, right? They went through a breakup, or their parents died, or whatever it is that made them have something that I want to share to the world, that I want to put it out there, that became huge hits because there was that depth behind it, that humanity behind it, right? That other people could relate to. And when you get all of your ideas and images and all of those things from AI, people can't figure out who you are. So they don't, because you're not allowing them to. And I think that is what's causing that erosion of trust. Authenticity. The word authenticity is really just showing up as yourself. And this is where a lot of people, I've actually had questions asked of me about how do you show up more authentically? Because a lot of people are trying to show up authentically, right? It seems to be a very common thing now, and be like, you should be more authentic, but they're not, right? That you can feel it. And that's the point, is you can feel when somebody is saying the right things, but is not actually living it. You can say that you are an authentic company and you do nice things, but then in the actions that you perform, in the way that you show up, in the way that you put yourself out there as a company, people will notice. It's a feeling that you have. It's not something that you can easily explain, but people can tell when you're being fake. People can tell when I don't like you. There's just something about you. There's something that I do not like, and I do not know what it is. I can't point my finger at it, but there's something there. When you pretend to be something that you're not, people can tell. It doesn't matter how good of a liar you are. So, with all of that said, let me give you a few kind of things that I use, how I use AI in my business, in my everyday life, if you will. Just very similar. Before, it was just overarching examples and categories that I think would be useful based on how I have figured things out. But here are things that I actually use. So with AI, and I will say this, that I don't use ChatGPT. I use Claude, because I find Claude to be much more useful, I guess. I think Claude actually, I've tried all of them. I've tried Gemini. I've tried all of them. But Claude has always been almost like a step above. Like, it's easy to get it to understand things for me. And I use Claude Code a lot because I have some experience, building websites and stuff. I understand code enough. I'm not a web developer, but I understand code enough that I understand how it works. And for me, one of the things that I like to do is I create a lot of little tools and systems to automate stuff around me, to make it faster. For example, one of the things that I like to do is whenever I am creating a podcast episode, as an example, right? And I'm creating the description and the show notes, or all these kinds of things, I would have to copy that in the tools that I'm using to actually put it out to Spotify and, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, and then put that and copy that on YouTube, and then go that and do the same thing and copy all of those things, the title, the images and all that, and put it on my website as well, right? Because that's also where it lives. And I don't want to do that. I don't have the time. So I create an automated system where I just put the title, I put the description, and I put the images, and I put that once, and then it just kind of sends it where it needs to go to all the different places and all the different websites, including my own. And then I just have to, accept them all, right? Go to them, see that it works fine, and then they just happen to be there. And those are the kind of the little things that I like to do that again just saves me time. Another thing that I like to do is I create routines. So for the people that know me, I love learning and intaking information from emails. I don't know why. It's just my thing, but I like subscribing to a lot of people, the people that I think have something worth saying or have something that of value, right? Consistently of value. And I subscribe to them. And, they send me emails, and half the time I don't have the time to look at all of the emails, consistently as it shows up. So what I like doing is I create a routine that it takes all of those emails and it summarizes essentially in a little bit what they are. And then I can go and check that summary. And then I can see, oh, okay, so this is something that I actually want to learn more of. And then I can go and open that email because I know that this is something that I'm already interested in, right? As opposed to other things that may or may not be interesting to me at the moment, or things that I don't want to learn from at the moment, right? And instead of having to figure that out each myself, I just look at that summary and it tells me everything that I need to see. And then I make that choice of what should I read today, right? That I think would be the most valuable. I actually, and like I said before, I use it to build MVPs, minimum viable products, right? To see if an idea has legs. So have the time, and it's similar to creating little tools and systems that are specifically for myself. But it's things like, oh, I have an idea. I think I have an idea notebook, right? So it's these things that one day I will get back to and see if this is useful. So I can have AI actually build a model really, really quickly and see if it works and see if it makes sense. And then I can be like, oh, this is cool. Maybe I'll push it out and see what people think, have tested. So my ideas actually end up surfacing faster, end up surfacing much quicker. And then I can see, okay, this is not worth having. I can delete it off of my idea notebook because it's too complicated, or, this is not the right time for me, et cetera, et cetera. And another one is similar to that, but I build my own SEO system. A lot of people don't know that you can actually build this kind of thing, but I created a system that pairs with my website, that checks all the parameters of my website and provides a full report so that I can see what's going on my website all the time, right? And it takes from Google Analytics, it takes from Google Search Console, it takes from, all these different places, including keyword research, but it does all of this. And what is the average search? What is the average view? What is the average, click, and all these kinds of things. Again, it combines all of that information together in a system that then I can just look at. I open up, I look at it and be like, okay, this is where I am. And then now I know, based on what's happening, I want to focus on these specific things, right? For my SEO or for my GEO, which we'll probably talk to at some point, which is the SEO version of AI. And that is essentially how I use AI. Like, I find it incredibly useful. I find it that it has maximized my time a lot more than it used to be. But I don't use it for anything that, is forward facing, because I believe that marketing is an invitation into your world. We've talked about, the world building aspect of things, right? And marketing being an invitation to that. So what are you trying to say when you use AI for that invitation, right? You're not saying anything. You're not allowing people to get to know you as you try and invite them into your world. I don't want to be invited to something that I don't care about, right? And if I don't care about your marketing, if I don't find value in your marketing, if you're just doing it for the sake of having marketing, I don't care about it. And I was reading, this was like months and months ago, but I was reading a comment section on an AI article, an article about AI. And people were complaining or talking about it, essentially, that this article was also made with AI, funnily enough. And there was a comment that really, I thought was really quite funny, but it's actually very, very true. And I think it's a sentiment that a lot of people have nowadays with AI. But it basically went with like, why would I bother reading something that you didn't bother write? Think about that. Why would I bother to read something that you didn't bother write? If it wasn't important enough for you to write it, for you to think about it, for you to spend that time, right? Because there's no value for you to write this out. Why would there be a value for somebody else to want to read it and want to interact with it? At the end of the day, as humans, what we do as a social creature is exchange of resources, exchange of values. It's the reason one of the earliest economic things that we did as humans was a barter system, because I'm going to give you something and you're going to give me something in return. If you don't think this is valuable enough for you to write, for you to spend the time doing, why would I spend my time figuring that out as well, right? It's an interesting thought. So the more and more machine created content floods the feeds, the more a human voice will stand out because it feels real, because they decided something, right? Because they have a point of view. It's you. That's the point. And, I always go back to the idea that I've heard for a very long time that time is money. So let AI save you time so that you can use that time to do whatever you want. Thank you for listening to this episode of Antiviral. And if you have a little bit of time, I would really love it if you reviewed on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening from, to just leave a review. It really helps this episode, and it really helps the podcast grow. And if you have any issues or you have any questions that you want answered in a future episode, just go to my website and contact me. I am happy to talk, and I'm happy to build episodes around what people actually want to listen to. So thank you very much. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.